Behind every success story, there is a long line of triumphs and defeats that remain hidden from others. These stories get condensed into journeys that minimize the struggle and wrap up with a happy ending. But we know that's not how life works. That's where From the Ashes with Mark Azoulay comes in. On today's show, you'll hear honest conversations about the challenges that Mark's guest faced and how they overcame adversity. Now, here is your host, Mark Azoulay.
Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Mark Azoulay, and I have a very special guest for you, my good friend, colleague, Miguel Lewis. Miguel, welcome to the show.
Hey.
So Miguel is a psychotherapist. He's a PsyD. He works at the VA in Florida. And he's written a chapter in a book that's just come out. The name of the book, you guys will be interested in this, is Uniting Men of Honor, Overcoming Adversity Through Faith. And he's written a book, chapter in that called From Open Wound to an Open Heart. So I'm really interested, even though it's not my background, I'm interested in these kind of faith-based men's groups, right? As I'm stepping more into the men's space, there's a lot to learn, I think, from what the church has been doing with these men's groups, because it's existed way before I think therapy has ever picked it up, right? So there's like a lot to learn from the organizations that you're a part of.
Yeah. So let me tell you about that. It's interesting, like, you know, the Band of Brothers organization I'm a part of isn't part of a church, right? Because I think that may be part of the problem, because I think that, not part of the problem, but the difficulty is that a lot of men's ministries aren't really happening in the church, from what I understand, what I've kind of heard. So this is like outside the church. Now we're faith-based, right? And so, but it's kind of outside the church. So I've been involved in this organization probably about 7-8 years. A friend of mine, Kevin Hobbs, got me interested in it. And one of the big things they do is they have like these weekend events twice a year. We call them one's called the boot camp, like we have in November. And then there's like a rally point, like these kind of cool terms, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, like military terms in May. And at first I was like, man, I'm not going to a weekend event, man. We're going to sit around and like a bunch of guys and like just do some group therapy stuff. I do that at work, man. I was kind of reluctant, scared, a little worried about it. But he kept on me, man. And so finally I went, and it blew me away. You know what I'm saying? I went to the first one. Actually, we used to have it in January. And it's interesting because they have a little bit of everything there. They have, if you want to shoot guns, you can do that. If you want to hunt wild boars, you can do that at night. If you like playing basketball, dominoes, I mean, they got everything. You know, late night barbecues. I mean, you know, guy movies. I mean, you name it. I mean, so they got it. So that's what kind of like what we got to sell to kind of get guys there. Like we tell guys, hey, you want to kind of weekend away from the family or just to kind of just unwind? Think about that. How often do guys do that? Never, man. We're always just doing supermarket stuff. You know, the stuff around the house, you know, just
stuff. Yeah, it's just in that provider role, right? Getting stuck in that provider
exactly,
role.
Man. Right. And so it's a weekend event where you get to get away, just kind of just hang and not have to worry about things to do. And these weekends, so they have all kinds of things like that, but they also have like the boot camp in November, they have various speakers. And I'm not talking about famous speakers, I'm talking about regular guys, right? That just get up there and tell their story. About maybe like a father wound or maybe like how they've overcome addiction or various things. And it's all based on the book, stuff by Wild at Heart by John Eldredge. And he talks about a lot of things, talks about, men need a kind of like a battle to fight, a beauty to rescue, and an adventure to live. And we kind of go through all those different things. He has like 9 video segments where he's kind of like, he's showing videos and then we have a speaker. And it's just powerful stuff, and guys get up there as speakers and they cry, and no one's like, you know, saying, "Oh man, you're like a wimp" or anything. No, that wouldn't happen. I think it would happen. Someone probably beat them up. We kind of we cheer them on, or we're just like not just cheer them, but we kind of clap and we kind of you got this, man, so they can get through their pain. But it's a wonderful display of like someone getting up there telling their story and 400 guys listening and really taking it in. And if they cry, we kind of help them get through that, and then so they can continue the story, man. So I've been involved for about 7-8 years, and then it's evolved over the years as well. We went from just the 2 boot camps, right, that we have 2 events, and so then realized, well, guys are kind of being taken out, as we say. In other words, they're kind of hit by the enemy, meaning that, you know, the Satan, the devil, and so they'll kind of end up doing some, you know, not so good things. So we realized we need to kind of have these weekly squads where they're either in person or now some are online, where they check in with the other guys. And so that's one of the things I lead as well. I help co-lead one of these weekly squads, co-weekly actually, and just kind of keep guys plugged in.
Great. Yeah, so it's like that integration piece too, right? For guys to stay in community and keep processing what they learned on the weekends.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's not just all gone and like, all right, I'll see you in 6 months.
Right.
No, man, you want, yeah. And then it's even evolved further than that. Good point. Because then we have like our Forgiving Forward series where like on Mondays, if you want to go to that, you can, like an 8-part series where they learn about forgiveness. There's one on overcoming like sexual addiction, with pornography stuff or other things that they have, with sexual addiction. And there's other one just on just how to become like a better Christian and so forth. That's like the Timothy Project and so forth. So that's all things that they got throughout the year as well, in addition to our squads. So it's grown over the years. It's gotten bigger and bigger, man. You know what I'm saying? And I'm on the leadership team. So one of the things we do is like 70 guys, we kind of, organize the event. We get there early. We kind of put it in the gymnasium. We have like all kinds of like, camouflage stuff. And so it's like really cool. You can kind of see it's all kinds of, all kinds of soldier stuff in the front, man. So you're like going there like, whoa. And we just make sure they have a good time and, and things are really running smoothly. So, yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about your personal journey to it. I mean, you said you were a little skeptical at first, but what had you finally go? And what was it like your first time there? Anything that stand out? Any memories or people that you met?
Oh, good question. I think my friend was a good friend of mine, Kevin Hobbs. He was persistent, and I said, "All right, man, let's gonna go, man. This he's helped me kind of learn how to come to Christ." And because when I was raised Catholic, but we only went C&E, Christmas and Easter here and there, man. You know what I'm saying? But he kind of helped me in the importance of God, and we would go to church with them. And I said, let me just try this. And so the first time, I think it's been a while, but I was just blown away by just guys being pumped up for like Christ. I'd never seen that before. People just pumped up and they were praying and, they had prayer sessions if you wanted to. It was optional, but if you wanted to, guys would get up there and they'd be weeping and letting things out. And they had these cool guy movies and then, you'd hear things like the one guest speaker talked about, a Cuban man talked about his father. And he said his father, this was back in the 60s, I think, he said his father or this early 70s, his father once said, okay, let's go strap up. And he and his father went from like, it's crazy, right? Went from bar to bar to try to find these dudes. And no, let me see. No, they you say strap up? No, he didn't say strap up, I'm sorry, but he just wanted him to kind of go around to these bars. And for some reason, they never, they did find these individuals, thank God. And then at night, I think he said one time, something happened and it was kind of like, pretty scary. But he realized that his father didn't really love him. His father didn't really love him. It's just more about him, the father, than it was him. So I was like, first I started hearing about the father wounds and what was going on, man. So that kind of hit me like, this is something going on here, man. So
yeah. What are some of the things that you learned, or like what takeaways did you have?
From that, well, I think the one was the father wound, because they ask, what's interesting about those weekends is they have you journal part of the time. And what you do is he'll say, what kind of father wound do you have? Or they'll have various questions, but that's the one that really hit me hard. And that's one of the big things that kind of hit me. Like, did your father, like, what did you learn from your father? And did you feel loved and cared for by your father? Or did your father ever tell you that you had what it takes? And that was kind of like, started hitting me. I'm like, like, because I answered the first one. Yeah, I learned this from my father, but the other three, I didn't really, I answered no, I didn't really feel loved by him. I didn't really, he never told me I had what it takes and things like that. So that's one of the things that I took away from those weekends, man. You know what I'm saying? And stuff. I didn't realize that I was even, I never heard of father wound. Or maybe I heard of it, but I'm like, oh, what's that? But those weekends sort of really kind of started hitting me. And then also sort of realizing through those weekends that you overcome the father wound or work through it or kind of address it through God and also other men. You know what I'm saying? So that's the thing. And so this may sound a little controversial. I don't mean to be controversial, but they say it's very difficult. They say you shouldn't go to a woman for that. Not that women can't do that, right? But I've even heard, I think Brene Brown talked about, it takes a woman who's done a lot of work, maybe a lot of therapy, to be able to kind of help a man when he goes to her and says, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, help me. I don't feel good enough. I don't feel I know what I'm doing. So that can kind of maybe scare some women. So what we say is that it's what we kind of recommend is going to your squad and going to God for that validation that you know that you're good enough, right? So because if you don't, right, then you may just hit the bottle for pornography or just isolate. That's a big one. Isolation is the worst.
Yeah.
So that's why we want to connect.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you feel comfortable talking more about your father, like what your relationship was like with him and what
Yeah.
your version of the father wound looks like?
Yeah. I appreciate that. Yeah. It was, I wrote about this in my chapter, and
Yeah.
I think my father was there for me, growing up. I mean, he worked, he worked long hours, but he was there. But not until later that I kind of realized that the father wound, and this is not too long ago, it was kind of kicking up because I would ask him, hey, you want to go to watch some tennis? Right? Well, tennis? No, no, I can't do that. Or, hey, why don't you guys kind of move up or just move up here? Because he lives about an hour south from
Mhm.
me. He says, no, mom's not interested in that. Mom's interested, but I'm not interested in that. Or I say, hey, why don't you kind of come up and just kind of check out, your granddaughter's event coming up? No, no. So that rejection it's all through text, right? That's how we kind of communicated a lot. Um, those started kind of hitting me,
Mhm.
right? And that's when I think that I really felt the father wound later, and it just started hurting more and more, and so that was becoming more painful.
Yeah. So feeling like you weren't a priority or that you weren't that important.
I think that's part of it. I think I didn't feel cared for. I didn't feel loved.
Okay.
I was looking for the connection with my father.
Mhm.
Even in my own group therapy about probably 12 years ago, I even talked about it then. And I was saying, in fact, then I asked my dad, hey, I want to connect with you. I want to connect, be close to you. Hey, let's go watch some tennis, which is interesting because I asked him that not too long ago, right? And I said, I think I rejected him by saying tennis, And so my own group therapy said, dude, that was the way your father was connecting with you, man. Run with that. Don't
Mhm.
criticize him. And I'm like, oh, right. But I think for some reason, I wanted something more than that. And I made it, and so I was thinking, just tennis. I want a weekend with you, man. I want to hang out, go camping, connect
Mhm.
in a more fulfilling way. But you know, that didn't really happen, and so over time. But I think I realized maybe the beginnings there was a longing to kind of connect with my dad.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that's normal for all kids, right? To have that longing to connect with your parents. And I think especially
Yes.
for men of that older generation, it's like they focus so much on survival and security because they had to, right?
Yes.
That now they have kids like us that have emotional needs and they don't quite know how to deal with that, right? Because
Exactly.
it's a whole new language.
It is. It
Yeah.
is, man. Yeah, yeah, yeah. In fact, a lot of times what we talk about in these you hear in these speeches of that wounded people, well, what is it? Hurt people,
Yeah.
right? And so what happened was, like, I think my grandfather, he never talked about it, but I know he had a father wound
Mhm.
because he talked about his grandfather or his father when he was 6. He was like some sort of contraption going down a hill for like some farming thing, and it was which was some horses, and he's 6. And he said he couldn't do it. I guess he was losing control of the horses. And his dad said, I don't care if you're losing control. You got to do this. And I was like, and I think he wrote about this one. That's a lot of stress for a 6-year-old.
Mhm.
Right. And so, and then I asked my father recently, did you have a father wound? He said, no, I never father wound. I had a pretty good relationship with my father, but he didn't talk to me much. And
Yeah.
I was like, damn, that's exactly what I'm trying to do with you.
Yeah.
Right.
So you get kind of that like lineage, right? That like it's getting
Yeah,
passed down of what a man should be and
exactly.
what a father should be. Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah. Now you're right. And these days, I think we have emotional needs, so we're trying to expand what the role of a father is. It's not just a provider, not
Mhm.
just a moneymaker. You know what I'm saying? And so, or just someone that helps around the house and does the grass. We want more than that. So it's changing.
Yeah. How would you define like the modern father role?
Oh,
What does it mean to be a father in 2023?
oh my God, that's a good question. Um, well, man, you're making me think here. uh, so I think for me, I think I can define it as I have 2 daughters. There's 18 and 15,
Mhm.
and I think because of my being a psychotherapist and doing this type of work where there's not only father wounds, but we see about how there's how fathers can also wound their daughters, right? And so, and I think I've mostly wounded my daughters in the past. I've regretted that. I've learned from it, but I think they're very important to me, man. And I remember my younger daughter prior to the pandemic said, "You know what, Dad? She's probably 12. When I grow up, I'm going to tell my kids that you only had dinner with me about 6 times. Man, that hit my heart like
Yeah,
a ton of,
God.
like a dagger, man. That was like a shotgun to the chest.
Mhm.
And believe it or not, I didn't really change much. It hurt me, but I was just wrapped up in work, and I'm a perfectionist at work, and I knew she was important to me. And I'd walk home every day to my car and feel regret and anger and guilt, but not until the pandemic did that change.
Mhm.
That it forced me to kind of be home, and then I could be dinner with them. That it wasn't for the pandemic, I might have still, unfortunately, still did that. So my role as a father is to as a provider, but also someone who's deeply involved in the family. You know what I'm saying? To be there for my daughters and to text them and to, be there for their games and to encourage them and to be patient even when I think they're being, freaking teenagers that drive me crazy. Yeah, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's expanding into a new way, right? Because I think, yeah, as men, like we know how to provide, we know how to fight, we know how to go out there and like
Yeah,
crush it. But when it comes to like
right.
being emotionally attuned and being present, and you know, it's a lot slower, I think, right? It's a lot like it's more
Hmm.
gradual, and it's not as black and white, right? You don't
Yeah,
always get a good outcome. So I was like, okay, that was like a weird night, but I guess I was present. I don't know, right?
that's right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. You think you were present, and whereas work, you just need, you're pretty good at that, because we do it so much and we're good at it, or we find our validation through it or whatever, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, with the other thing, it's like sometimes I drop the ball sometimes with my daughters, you know what I'm saying? And so I'm like, ooh, right. And so, but I think that, I ask for forgiveness, and I've made big mistakes. And I think, it's painful at the time. And then over time, the things gradually get easier. And then, and the wound, I think sometimes is still there. Uh, I try to help them know that I'm there for them, and I make mistakes,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And I guess try to help them like integrate and recover from that, right? Like you can have those ruptures, but
Yeah,
the repair is also critical.
that's the truth, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the key.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
I hear that. And I think there's also like, it's weird, I speak with my older clients and talk about fathers. There's something that I think is new is like going into the kid's world, right? Because I think
Hmm.
historically the kid would come into the parents' world or the father's world and like, oh, like let's learn stuff that I'm into, right? Like let's go farm, let's go do tennis, let's go fish, whatever it is, whatever the dad was into. I think there's this call
Yes.
now to like enter your child's world and like hang out and play the video game that they're playing, right? Or like listen to the story that they care about, or like learn about their friends, or you know, take a look at their fashion or whatever it is, right? I think that's like very new for dads. Um, we never
It,
had to
it,
enter the kid world. We just kind of stay in the dad world, you know?
that's true. In a way, I mean, that's kind of a judgmental way to look at it, but it may be kind of be seen as selfish when you just say, no, we're going to go sailing this weekend. You're going to come with me. And the kid may
Right.
not like sailing at all. And then you ask him many years later, I think John Eldredge, the author of Wild at Heart, talked about stories. I think he has had some friends. They said they would go sailing, and the kids would say, I hated that. And they're
Mhm.
older. I hated sailing. So you're right. You have to kind of go into their worlds and do what they like.
Like really get to
It's
know them,
selfless.
if you
It's
don't like it,
selfless, man.
right? Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. 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 Yeah, man. But in my case, I think I like the stuff. I mean, my older daughter is big into videos. She takes videos of all of our trips. It's like
That's
a
cool.
3 minute video, and I'm always giving her feedback. What? There needs to be more talking, man, or longer. And she's like, she does her own thing. But I have to
Mhm.
appreciate that. But there's always a good capture of the of our weekends. And my younger daughter is she's big into cross country now. And I remember one time I was the last 100 yards, I was running alongside of her, the side, kind of cheering her on,
Mhm.
tears in my eyes, and it was just a big moment. I loved it, man. You know what I'm saying? It was fun to do that, man. So they're probably like, "Who's that goofy dad running along beside the kids?" That's me, bro. That's
Yeah.
me, man. I love it. That's my
That's a
daughter.
that's a big dad moment. Yeah. Yeah. Those are great
Exactly,
examples
man.
of entering their worlds, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's fun, exciting, and and that's when I'm some of those moments where it's fun to be a dad.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
man.
awesome. Well, we're going to move to
Yeah,
our
man.
first commercial break now.
Yeah,
When we
man.
get back, I want to chat a little bit more about what's going on with modern masculinity. I think you
Hmm.
alluded a little bit to the validation that a lot of men need. You've talked about, that's the language I use for is like a need for initiation, a need of
Mm,
like going from like boy to man, right, and marking that transition. And then a
okay.
need for father, right? A need for paternal, whether that be through a group of guys, through a relationship with God, through a mentor. I mean, I think a lot of guys really need that. So I think we got a lot to talk about when we come back. For those listening, hang on in there, and we'll see you on the other side of the commercial break.
Post your thoughts about our shows and network on our timeline. Visit facebook.com/Voice America.
In Mark's work with high performers and business owners, it is becoming increasingly clear to him that their biggest obstacle to success is themselves. They are experts in their field, but are dragged down by their anxiety, poor time management, inability to focus, or self-sabotage. His role is to help you overcome these emotional and organizational issues so that you can truly excel in your business and your personal life. One of the most common hurdles that he sees is perfectionism, a crippling anxiety around performance. It's a fear of not being good enough, being publicly embarrassed, or of disappointing others. These fears paralyze brilliant people and bring them to their knees. This course will help you to break free from this mental prison and have more agency in your world. In this online course, we will break down the prison of perfectionism so that you can break out of it. For more information and to sign up, visit mark-azulay.teachable.com. That's Mark, MARC-azulay, AZOULAY.teachable.com.
Where can you listen to some of the world's top life coaches ready to dish out success tips and entrepreneurial guidance? The Voice America Empowerment Channel will do just that. Whether it's personal growth, building a better business, or inspirational life stories, make it a daily habit to tune into our programs. From weight loss and personal branding to law of attraction and increased happiness, you'll find it every day at VoiceAmericaEmpowerment.com. The Voice America Empowerment Channel. It's your world. Motivate, change, succeed.
Our thoughts and feelings not only affect our own lives, but the lives of everyone around us. Find new meanings of love, authentic expressions, and better connections with the people in your life. Tune in to Love Light with Dr. Jean Marie Farish. This program will feature guests and discuss ideas that will bring a better life to you. When you find this perspective on love, it will change everything. Listen live every Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time and 9 a.m. Pacific Time on the Voice America Empowerment Channel.
You are listening to From the Ashes with Mark Azulay. To reach the show today, please call 1-888-346-9141. That's 1-888-346-9141. Or send an email to podcast@mark-azulay.com. Now, back to From the Ashes.
Welcome back to the show. I'm sitting here with Miguel Lewis, and we're talking about father wounds and modern masculinity. So, Miguel, I wanted to dive in, pick up where we left off.
Okay.
I'm curious, you were alluding to, which I agree with, the state of modern masculinity, right? And this need that guys have for validation, for knowing that they got it, right? For knowing that they're worthy. Can you say a little bit about that, about what needs you see guys coming in with to your organization, Band of Brothers?
Yeah, so I think one of the good ways to describe that is that, and John Eldredge talks about this in his book, Wild at Heart, and also the videos about posing. In other words, you ask a guy how he's doing, man, I'm killing it, man. I'm doing good. I'm great, man. But meanwhile, maybe they're just overworking, or they're excessive pornography, right? Or they're just out of tune with their family, or they're really depressed, or they're drinking. All kinds of stuff is going on. We may not even know. Mm-hmm. And so how do they deal with it? Through they deal with it, like I just said, all the addictions or other things, right? Because they're afraid to open up to other men and say what's really going on. Our organization talks about the importance of that. We see that, and we see that when the speakers get up there and they're telling their story. They're really opening up. They're crying about it. They're really talking about their emotions, how it was, they're depressed or anxious or whatever, or they're on the brink of a divorce from their marriage, and the guy got involved, and then, things changed. And so that's what I think we're trying to get at, men to kind of really open up. And that's what we really talk about in our squads, as we call them, like these online or in-person groups that we have them. It's not a Bible study. That's the thing. People say, oh, it's a Bible study. No, man, you can get a Bible study in your church. Bible study is important, but not there, man. There it's a place where we can really open up about what's really going on, right? And so that's the thing, and that's where and I kind of lead it like a group, even though in those things I tend to self-disclose a little bit more because I'm a member as well as just as a leader.
Mm-hmm.
But where people really really open up about some stuff, man, and I think guys need that. We all need it. We may think we don't need it or not admit to it, but that may be the old philosophy. That men are this or that, or that are always like steel, never opening up and never showing emotion. But that's not healthy, man. I think a modern man, is someone who can be a badass, shoot a rifle or defend his home or do good at work or kind of say no to people when they have to say no, but can also be, that it can also be very nurturing and caring. So I think that's my definition of a full man.
I love that. Yeah, I think we have a lot in alignment, right? Like,
yeah,
I see it as like guys, we like to be masters of tools, right? And it's like you gotta have a tool for every situation, right? Like sometimes,
right.
you gotta get out there and you gotta kick ass and you gotta slay or you gotta just endure. But sometimes
Right.
you gotta be really gentle with your daughter, right? Sometimes you have to be
Right.
a
Or the
great
son
husband.
too.
Or your son,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, like sometimes
Right.
you have to put on a different tool. And I think there's a lot of courage in facing those emotional demons as well as the physical demons outside, right? Like locking up, clamming up isn't being courageous, right? It's just like hunkering down and
Oh,
hiding most of the time.
that's a very good point. It's not courageous. That's a great way of putting it. Yeah. I do a lot of that with just today, and I met a man for the first time, and and when I was doing some therapy, and I often kind of say when they're open up to me, I said, "Man, that's really brave that you're kind of open up now. Really
Yeah.
brave move." I want to kind of encourage their opening up, not being quiet about it, or just, I'm really kind of make them say, "Hey, this is good to kind of open up this other dude that I don't even know, right? That is a good thing." Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
because I think as men, especially as young men, like we all want to be the hero, right?
Yeah,
Like we all
hero,
want to have that hero
badass.
thing. You're badass, right? You want to go out there, you want to slay the dragon, you want to find the damsel in
Yeah,
distress, right? Like you want to come
right.
back and be king. And I
Yeah,
think the emotional work is that. I think it is a hero's journey, right? Of going into those darker parts of yourself, and fighting with them, right? And coming out stronger, right? Getting
yeah,
that like powerful sword or whatever, right? That you get at the end of your quest, and like being stronger
exactly.
because of it, being able to be more present, more happy, beat an addiction, right? Beat
Yeah,
a fear, something like that.
yeah. I want to go back to this chapter I wrote a little bit because
Mhm.
in I talked about my father wounds with the men in my group, so it's a little bit different than a traditional group leader where you kind of say much. I needed the group to talk about my anger at my father. I was saying so I was pissed at him, angry at him. I would curse, and then but something kind of strange happened where like um like a I don't know 3 months after doing that, one guy named Michael Long in my group says, "Hey man, you're no longer angry at your father." And I was like, "Holy shit!" And he's and I think I realized he might have said this. I think you forgave your father, and I didn't even realize it. But I think that happened through, and that was a big moment because I was like, "Man, where's my anger, man?" And I think that happened because I think through Christ and the group, I learned I forgave him and didn't even realize it. I had compassion for my father because I realized that he had a sleeping disorder that led into depression and anxiety, and he was a changed man. He went from being so involved in many activities to kind of closing down, right? Because of the depression, anxiety, and the sleeping disorder. And I think even I knew this way because I knew my dad was only sleeping about 3 to 4 hours a day as opposed to his 7 before. But then one day I just kind of Googled. I said 3 to 4 hours a day. What effects does it have? And it said depression.
Mhm.
Now I knew my dad was depressed, but somehow reading that one day hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, oh shoot. So I felt a little guilty, but also I felt understanding and a compassion for my father. Is like my dad is not just a little mild depression; it's like severely depressed and anxious. That's a damn tough combination. So I think through that and thinking about my father, I realized he's doing the best he can. It's not a justification or rationalizing it. He's doing the best he can. Sure, I was still disappointed with him a little bit, but I'm like, man, between that and growing up in this era, I had to kind of realize maybe there's some things that I may never get my father,
Mhm.
and that's okay. And maybe sometimes I think I said sometimes maybe you're being a father to your father,
Mhm.
so I realized, what, I got to rely on God and these men in front of me for the needs that I need, that I want. And so through getting angry and pissed, I was able to kind of, like they say, to go from wounded heart. I mean, what does it say? Go from an open wound to an open heart. I had more love and compassion, understanding for my father.
Yeah, that's a lovely story. And I think that it just
Thank
so
you.
encapsulates the journey, right? It's like,
Oh yeah,
just to just underline some of the things you're saying is like your pain, like this is I think important for guys to hear, right? Like having compassion for your father in this case doesn't
yeah,
minimize your pain. Your pain is still real,
yeah.
but
Yeah, right.
the anger isn't directed at him anymore. So now you can actually
Not
do some of the healing of that pain, and you
yeah,
can see him as an imperfect being, which we all are, right? Like we're all human, we're all
yeah,
imperfect, and you can see him for how he is and love him for how he is. I think that's so critical. But it's that whole cycle of going through like, oh shit, my parents aren't perfect. Oh crap, that means that they wounded me. Oh no, right? Like now I'm mad at them.
yeah.
Like how could you done any better? But then you realize like
Right.
they were doing the best they could, right? And there is healing to be done there. And then now you can say, yeah, you can pick up the torch and give your dad maybe some of that more emotional needs that he's not able to do. It's not like he's withholding it from you, right? He's not able to do it for anybody, including himself, right? Like he's just not
Exactly.
capable of that.
Exactly. Right. Yeah, he's not capable of it. And he tried therapy once and stuff, a couple times, and he used to go to some couples therapy with my mom
Mm-hmm.
and so forth. But he's not really into therapy, man. Maybe part of his error.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm
Yeah,
thinking, and he's not a believer. So I'm thinking, ooh, if you're not a believer and you don't have any therapy, ooh, man, you're on your own, man. And so that's the other thing I realized that he's doing the best he can, man. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, so I give him credit.
exactly. Yeah. So tell me more about the God piece, right? Like I think that's where your organization and mine differ a little bit, but I'm very interested in how you bring in the faith-based component. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure. And so let me go back to these events that we have. So we don't start off by the day one, by having prayers and all this stuff, right? Now, and so we have guys realize it's a fun weekend. We can do all kinds of guy stuff. But then there also was time for through the stories you realize how people overcame adversity through Christ and so forth. And there's also prayer time. But we build that in, and we saying it's there throughout the whole weekend. Guys are praying for each other, and you may have a lot of non-believers there too that are coming. And so I'm saying they may come to our thing before they would come to a church. In fact, I think if you look at the church these days, a lot of men aren't going to church, man.
Yeah.
They're just not going to church, maybe because they're not into it or it's not important. They'd rather watch the game, or I don't know what million reasons. But we're trying to get guys to come to this because a lot of guys will just want to shoot a gun or just hang out or just have a weekend to themselves. That's why we get them in. So we get them in that way, and we also see if they want to kind of find God. And so they have an opportunity through these events one time over the weekend where if they want to kind of they want to dedicate themselves to God or rededicate themselves to God, and they have an opportunity to kind of do that. You know what I'm saying? And so to get closer. So that's how we're trying to do that. I'm saying we're trying to be men that open up to other men and realize that they're important, while at the same time realizing that God is important as well. You know.
Yeah. What role has God played in your life? Because you said that you were raised Catholic, but weren't super into it. But now it sounds like
Right.
you've leaned into it a lot more. Like,
Yeah, that's
how's that
true.
been
I
in your
think
life?
it's been a big difference. Because I pray every day. I pray during the day. It's like a battle being a therapist, man. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? We're kind of getting hit, absorbing all their stuff. And so I pray during the day, to get me through the day, to have patience. Some days, if every once in a while I don't sleep well, or sometimes there's been an onslaught of new patients. And so you're just like, oh my God, how many people are there in this world? You know what I'm saying? How am I going to another new patient? And so I got huge caseloads. How am I going to deal with this? And so I pray, I get down on my knees at times, on the side of my bed, and I do that. And also, I realize sometimes that through these Zooms, but also in person, when other guys lay their hands on me and they pray for me, that's when it really gets powerful. Because it's prayer for me is one thing, but other people praying for you and around you, or at these events. I did that for the first time. I went to my friend, Kevin Hobbs, who was there, and he prayed for me. It was powerful. You just unload. You know what I'm saying? And it's cathartic. So I think it's just, doing these events, going to church. I just think that it's good to have God in my life. And I think it also explains we see a lot of real bad stuff happen in this life. It's like, well, how did that happen? I don't know. It just things happen. No, I said, no, man, that's the enemy. That's the Satan that's gotten this person's life. And that's why these these kids are kind of maybe shooting these other people or getting involved in all these bad things. It's Satan's getting involved in their life. They kind of grip them, and that happens when they don't have a squad of men around them, or some sort of connection with men or other people, or some sort of organization to help them out. They're isolated on their own.
Yeah, I'm so curious about that interaction, right? Between, and you seem like the perfect person to ask, right? Because you're both trained in psychology and you have this faith-based background, right? So the question I'm asking might be a little direct, but it's like, what are your beliefs about evil, right? Because I think psychology would talk about how, it's trauma and it's conditioning, and these people are often victims. Whereas my limited understanding of Christianity is that there is Satan, there is the evil, there is like true badness in the world. So I'm just curious, how you reconcile that, or what your form of that is. Because
it's a good question.
Yeah,
I think. Well, I don't deal with it. I don't think about it. It's interesting when I put my psychology hat on, therapist hat, I don't think about it that much. Although, because I don't think I don't do too much trauma work, and so you'll hear about it. But I do the people with the PTSD stuff, but PTSD department. But I think in general, when I see bad things happening in life, like really bad things, in the news and so forth, that's where I think Satan's involved. But it doesn't necessarily have to be even that grave stuff. It could just be like, hey, for instance, if it didn't happen today, but let's say if it happened today where I get in an argument with my wife right before we're doing this, all of a sudden I'm really sleepy. I'm like, oh my God, I don't feel like doing this today. Then we view that it could be Satan getting involved as well, wanting to kind of get in the way of something that's important to you. They say if you're just kind of coasting in life and kind of on the sidelines, right, not really getting involved in God's work, well, Satan's not going to bother you. Mm-hmm. I'm not worried about this dude. He's not doing anything. But when you start trying to get guys to these events and trying to, and then you start realizing, he's trying to come after you, man, and trying to get involved. And that's called spiritual warfare. I didn't know that term when I first heard of it. Like, what is that? But spiritual warfare is like all kinds of things happening around you. Like the devil's trying to get involved. We don't see all this stuff, but they're trying to really get involved and trying to mess you up and kind of just attack. And unless you have a group of guys around you and trying to stay prayed up and read the Bible, you're going to get taken out, man. So that's the thing. You got to be prepared and equipped.
That makes sense. So that's what the Band of Brothers is, it sounds like, right?
Yes.
It's those squads that are out there fighting the good fight.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Squads, the events, the two big events a year, also the Zoom things about forgiving forward and all those different things, forgiveness and all that. So we try to just hit different aspects of men to kind of keep them ready. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
man.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I think where mine, deviates is it's much more around like community and bringing people together. But I can see the power of having like a shared enemy, right?
Yeah,
and how that can really bring guys together on like a mission.
Yes, exactly.
Whereas with my organization, it's more about like, I see it. I mean, my analog is more of like a hunting lodge, right? So it's like you go out in your life, you're doing your hunts, you're like having your adventures, and then you come back to the men's lodge and you swap stories, you make meaning of what you just did during the day, you share a little bit, right? Like, maybe you cry if you need to, right? But then you go back out into the world, right? You go back on the hunt, to do what you need to do. Right.
And that's cool too. It sounds like people are opening up and they're kind of sharing stories and they're healing,
exactly. Yeah.
And they're also having and making meaning, and they're also doing fun things. I think that, you tell a guy, you want to kind of just like do some sort of boring event the weekend. I don't know about that. But tell them, man, you want to go to that where Buck has, we're going to go out, camping, and we're going to do some, we're going to look at wildlife. I'm like, hell yeah, man. Guys need adventure, man.
Yeah. Guys need adventure. And guys bond over adventure. Like we need to overcome hardship together is masculine bonding. Right.
Exactly. And you get that through like you do an activity and then you talk about it. Just talking about it might be just like, guys not going to open up right off the bat.
Yeah, you have to be like, okay, we went through some bullshit together. Now I feel more connected to you.
So now we can talk about it.
Yeah. Well, this is great. We got to move to our final commercial break here. When we get back, I want to talk directly to the listeners about if they want to heal their father wounds, if they want to get involved in the organization, if they're looking for groups of guys, any advice or tips you might give them. So if you're listening, hang on in there, and we'll see you on the other side of the commercial break.
Follow us on Twitter at VoiceAmericaTRN. Get the lowdown on guests, new shows, and your favorites. That's VoiceAmericaTRN.
In Mark's work with high performers and business owners, it is becoming increasingly clear to him that their biggest obstacle to success is themselves. They are experts in their field, but are dragged down by their anxiety, poor time management, inability to focus, or self-sabotage. His role is to help you overcome these emotional and organizational issues so that you can truly excel in your business and your personal life. One of the most common hurdles that he sees is perfectionism, a crippling anxiety around performance. It's a fear of not being good enough, being publicly embarrassed, or of disappointing others. These fears paralyze brilliant people and bring them to their knees. This course will help you to break free from this mental prison and have more agency in your world. In this online course, we will break down the prison of perfectionism so that you can break out of it. For more information and to sign up, visit mark-azulay.teachable.com. That's Mark, MARC-Azulay, AZOULAY.teachable.com.
Voice America programs are now available on your favorite connected device, including Amazon, Alexa, and Google Home. Through streams with Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, and iHeartRadio, listening to your favorite show is as easy as saying the show name followed by the word podcast.
Hey, Alexa, play Finding Your Frequency podcast.
If that doesn't work, try adding on TuneIn or on iHeartRadio or on Apple Podcasts.
You are listening to From the Ashes with Mark Azulay. To reach the show today, please call 1-888-346-9141. That's 1-888-346-9141. Or send an email to podcast@mark-azulay.com. Now, back to From the Ashes.
Welcome back to the show. In the final segment, we talk directly to you, the listener. So, Miguel, if there's someone listening, a guy that wants to get involved, right? That's like, oh shit, like I don't have a squad, I don't have a band of brothers, I don't have this kind of community. I want to do some work on connecting and tapping into my masculinity. How do you think they should start?
Yeah, good question. I think one of the main things is like I got a website. It's called UnitedMenOfHonor.com. That they can go there, and you can get hooked up with a guy named Kenny Hobbs. There's actually one of the brothers of my good friend Kevin Hobbs, who's really kind of he was actually the author of this book. The editor and also the author as well of this United Men of Honor, Overcoming Adversity Through Faith. And through that organization, that website, you can find out about events happening here in Florida. Now, if they live outside of Florida, I'm sure we can find something because they have Band of Brothers events in, I think, in different, they have it in Texas and California and Colorado and Atlanta. So different places that we can have them get involved and learn more about this organization. Then I'm saying, yeah,
that's cool.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm curious. Like, here's a question that my guys ask. I'm very curious your thoughts on it. Right?
Yeah.
Is they're in a men's group, right? Or say they go to one of your retreats and they have these really powerful, emotionally intimate experiences with other guys, right? And then kind of naturally they look around at the other guys in their life and they're like, oh shit, I'm not having this with my other friends, right? Like with my drinking buddies or my hunting buddies, or in Colorado, your hiking buddies.
Yeah.
How does a guy bring what he learned in these kind of really contained environments into the real world? Because for me, that's so important, right? Like, I don't want people to not have friends in the real world and just be relied on my therapy groups, right? Like, I want them to practice in my therapy group and then be able to bring it into the actual world. For me, that is success.
Bring what to the real world? I mean,
bring like just emotional intimacy, bring like masculine connection, bring kind of emotional integrity, right? I think all the stuff that you practice in the groups, right? In your squads and in my therapy groups. So what would you say to a guy that needs to take that next step, right?
To go from like the squad to life. To life.
Yeah.
Good question. I think a lot of things is that we like, say it again. I'm a little mixed up here.
I'm sorry. I'll try to be more clear. I guess my question is, how would somebody integrate what they've learned in the retreats and in the squad work that you do and apply it to their real life, right?
Yeah.
The life outside of the kind of contained environment that both of us provide.
That's a tough one because I think a lot of let's say they learn a lot about opening up and then but their buddies at work, they still maybe kind of reluctant, or maybe they invite their buddies to one of these events and they're like, nah, man, you know what I'm saying? Even though they see their buddies kind of struggling and like, man, you need this, man. I'm saying, and they're like, no, I'm not doing that religious stuff, man. I'm not gonna like, oh, that's not about that. That's about that's other things too. And let me consider it. You know, I think it might be tough to kind of like to sell it. Some people, like for instance, when I try to sell these events, or I shouldn't say sell, promote them. Some guys I have to hit a lot. Some guys they're just never interested. I have good friends of mine. They're just not interested. Even though they have good marriages, I think still there's always something to kind of work on. You know what I'm saying? And if you're doing well, then come to the organization and then bring other men to the organization. That's our kind of message. That's how we integrate it, is by kind of bringing more men. We want more men to come to these events and kind of learn and to and to grow. That's our mission. I think one of the main things that they talk about is it's not about you. It's not about you, man. It's about bringing more men to the kingdom. When I heard that, man, I think my friend Kevin Hobbs says, "Hey, how many men have you?" Talking to the group, not just me. How many men have you brought to Christ? And I was like, "What? Brought to Christ, man? I got to worry about the bills this week, right? I got to worry about." But that was a game changer. It's a different way of thinking. Right? Just like recently, I've heard a lot of people like not just reading the Bible, but they incorporate the Bible into their lives. I've been going to these events for like 7 years, and I kind of just gradually realized that they're not just reading it; they're using it every day. That was a game changer, man. So I think that's what it is. Kind of just getting, trying to see if other people are interested, and some may not, but to be persistent, to get involved. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one
last thing.
Okay.
I should also mention, I forgot. So the person that talked about this is not just about you; it's about bringing other men. It's Guy Shishadi. He's the leader, and brought Band of Brothers to Florida. He, along I think with some other people, went to the event in California and asked John Eldridge, can we use some of your videos and bring it here to Florida? Because I think actually Colorado is where they have it. They have these big events that John Eldridge does, but they're waiting lists and so forth. So we asked if we can bring it to Florida, and he said, yeah, we've been doing it for like 10 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really cool. Part of the whole thing on masculinity, right? But one of the values I think is critical for men is honor, right? And the way that I define honor is like having a code of ethics, having something that you believe in,
right?
And something that, especially under fire, you stick to, right? And whether that be, derived through therapy, whether that be derived through faith, whether that be derived through, introspection and philosophy, doesn't matter where it comes from. But I think having an honor code is critical. And a guy that is like wishy-washy, right? Or that is like a chameleon, right? Or a people pleaser, to me, that's like a little bit less masculine, right? Like there's something masculine about like knowing who you are and standing up for that under pressure. So I'm curious, because I know faith is probably where the honor code was originated, right?
Right.
In like the 10 Commandments and all that, right? So
right.
Can you say a little bit about your honor code or the honor code of the organization? Like what are some of the tenets that you hope that, these guys bring into their lives?
Man, that's a good one. I think I got two things. I think the biggie is just kind of following God, what I'm saying, having him involved in your life. And then and another thing I think is that Guy Shishadi, our leader, also talked about, and I think of this a lot. I'm not sure if it's an honor code or anything, but it's something I think about. Let your yeses be yeses and your no's be no's.
Yeah.
Bro, I heard that. I was like, whoa. So when you say you yes to people, like with you, man, I'm going to be here, man. Mm-hmm. Unless I'm dying, I'm going to be here. You know what I'm saying? You're depending on me, and I'm going to be here. I'm a man of my word. I try to do that about 99% of the time. Every once in a while, I miss some things, but I say I'm going to be here. And that's your nose be nose too. Now, sometimes I have difficulty with that because sometimes being assertive with people, and I'm always working on that. But if you say no, that's it. No, not like, oh, no, yes, sometimes. No, man, I think that's probably being a man. You know what I'm saying? So mean it. And so that's what I've kind of learned. Also, when I've come back from these events, I felt like more assertive, not aggressive and not angry, but like, more, oh, man, dude. You know what I'm saying? I just feel, man. And sometimes that got me in trouble. I sent an email, like a mass email to 10 years ago to work and kind of challenge one of the leaders. Well, that didn't go well. That's between that didn't go well. I've learned I got to contain it sometimes, but I've realized that I feel like, man, powerful. I feel like, because I'm connected to God, connected to other men, and I realize, masculinity is about being close to God, other men, and then doing what you say, and treating your wife like Christ loved the church, treating your children with love, and then not only that, but I think it's maybe another thing is about community.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about us, man. We're trying to reach other men, so we're trying to get out there. There's more work to be done. 400. It sounds good, pretty impressive, but man, there could be some of these things weekly across America. You know what I'm saying? And because men need this sort of thing.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I love what you're saying about dependability, right?
Yeah,
like you said,
man.
Being a man of your word, really committing, and kind of knowing who you are, right? And knowing who you are.
That's right, man. Yeah. I think that's a big part of being a man. You know, I couldn't let you down, Mark. And if I did, I'd be like, well, I think I just lost that relationship. You'd be nice about it, but you'd be like, bro, this guy didn't even show up for my own podcast. I'm going to be swimming upstream if I have to get here. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. I mean, I think our relationship's a little bit stronger than that, but it
Yeah,
would have been
right.
a ding. It would have been a ding, right?
A
It would have been
ding,
like,
right. Yeah,
shit,
that's true. You would have been forgiving, but no, we got to, whether it's big stuff like this or small things. Hey, I'll call you tomorrow. Call him tomorrow.
Right.
Call her tomorrow.
Right.
Otherwise, you're like, well, that guy's not really a man of his word. He just kind of says things, but so that's the thing.
That follow through. Yeah.
Firm. Yeah, man. So
yeah, what are some of the things that you've learned about yourself, either through your organization or maybe as you've gotten older? Anything that was just like, oh wow, I didn't really know this about me, but I'm happy that I got the opportunity to learn that.
Good question. One of the men who's sadly not involved in our group anymore, he was on a leadership team, but he kind of left to do some other things. So it's good he's involved in other kind of faith-based stuff. But he once told me that he says, man, you're a super encourager. And I was like, what? And I didn't even realize that. I just, I just like to encourage people, man. And I don't know if I've heard about, if I've knew this through the organization or not, but maybe this is also part of the whole honor thing. But if someone will text me, then I always try to text them back. And if I can't text them immediately, I'll put a reminder in my phone to text them back 2 hours later, because I don't want anybody to be dropped. That's important to me. Maybe that's part of also my therapy training. But I just, I've learned that about myself. I'm a very caring man, and I always root for the underdog. Not just underdog, but everybody, but especially for the underdog. And people are important to me, man. So I want to make sure that they know that I care and I'm there for them. I'm reliable. That's the things I kind of learned, I think, about myself, man. And I've learned that. Also, the main thing is that I've really learned through this organization, right, and just through being part of it, that I love talking about men's issues, man. What men struggle with, when they do well, when they don't do so well, when they fall, and what's important to them, when they burn out, when they need a trip, when they need it. I like seeing when men hang around guys, they can be loose and they can just let loose and kind of cut up and do guy stupid stuff. You know what I'm saying? Cut jokes and rag on each other. That it's fun to see that, all aspects of men.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think you are a super encourager. I think you are like a great role model for guys. And I love that you're just out here, on the show or in your life, just talking about these issues and bringing light to it and helping to dispel the shame around it, right? I mean, I think so many guys just bury this stuff, like you said, with bottle or with the porn or with drugs or with affairs or whatever, right? And you're
exactly,
like, no, you can come and talk about it. Man. We got to wrap up here, Miguel. It's great having you on the show. Before we end, where can people find out more about you or more about your organization? Any websites or social media that you want to plug before we end?
So 3 things: to find out more about the book, or just the organization in general, that's UnitedMenOfHonor.com. To find out about events in Florida, upcoming events, is FLBOB.com. And if you want to email me, I'm not on Facebook, I'm not on anything like that. I'm saying Instagram. I just got it old school, so you can email me at Miguel. That's MIGUELLEW @gmail.com.
Great. Fantastic. Well, thanks for being on here. For listeners, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week on another episode of From the Ashes.
Thank you for joining host Mark Azoulay on From the Ashes. Be sure to tune in again live next Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time and 11 a.m. Pacific Time on the Voice America Empowerment Channel, or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Meet triumph and defeat, and treat those 2 imposters the same.